Hello everyone, it's Sam over at Scorpio Rising Astrology here for another Signs 101 video. Today is Friday, the day of Venus, and so we are filming the Taurus and Libra videos. So we'll start with Taurus, the notorious bull, the earth sign that is known for its stability, its strength, but also those strengths and stabilities that become its own weakness. And so we will be delving into those magnificent qualities. Let's go ahead and pull up some more about Taurus. Okay. So Taurus, the bull, naturally known as the sign of stability, and there are a couple things that make that quality stand out with Taurus. You know, at its best, the Taurus people that have been in my life have really been just rocks. They are the people that constantly stick around. They are the ones who will always be there for you. They're the ones who constantly reach out and make sure that you are feeling loved, that you are feeling supported when they choose to let you into their inner circle. If you are not in that inner circle, Taurus really could not care less. As long as you're not bothering them, they will not bother you. But that's kind of just Taurus stuff. So let's talk a little bit more about why Taurus is so stable, why it's so predictable, and why the energy of this earth sign is so, well, earthy. Okay, so as with all of the signs, I've chosen an image. And the image, just real quick before I talk about the stats, is kind of cows in the field. And what I like about this image specifically is that we have the fixed earth energy of Taurus represented here. Now, as opposed to Virgo, which is mutable earth, the ability to transfer and translate resources from one medium to another, it's breaking up that earth element. And then cardinal earth of Capricorn, who is always worried about the ascent and creating the mountain out of the molehill. Taurus is really the flat plains. Taurus is about keeping things consistent. Taurus is about having that wide open field that gets grazed gradually in a specific pattern as to, you know, make sure that none of the grass goes unsustainably out of season, and everything is just maintained in this rhythm, this logical progression throughout history. And that's really the beauty of Taurus, is that fixed earth energy, which is consistent. It is benign, it is not harmful, it's just trying to do its job, and it does its job evenly and beautifully with the least amount of energetic effort. Taurus really has nothing to prove, very much like cows in the field. They're just kind of doing their thing. They are part of the cycle of life. They embrace their part in the cycle, and they do their job to the best of their abilities. Taurus is like, if there was one sign that really did absolutely nothing to deserve being picked on, Taurus is the one. Taurus is the kid in the class that just kind of, you know, keeps to themselves. Taurus is not one of the more aggressive or one of the more kind of, I want to say dangerous, but none of the signs are really dangerous. And in fact, Taurus can be quite dangerous if pushed to its own limits, and we'll talk about that. But Taurus is, in my opinion, one of the least threatening signs of the Zodiac, not only because it is ruled by Venus, but also just because of its fixed earth qualities. And earth as an element, when we get into Taurus's stats, is the element of predictability, of ritual, of routine, of resource, of wealth, of anything that can be measured, anything that has value, anything that can be turned into life, basically. Now, the fixed mode of Taurus, which we've touched on a little bit already, is really what makes Taurus the most stable, predictable, and stubborn sign. You know, Taurus does bring to the table a lot of that stubbornness, but the reason why Taurus is so stubborn, and it can be stubborn in love, And I've known several Taurus friends and family members who have literally said, I don't care what you think, I love you, and I will keep loving you. And that push, yeah. So that's a very Taurus trait, is I don't care what you think, I don't care what you're doing, I'm going to do things my way because I know what's best. And Taurus is very rarely wrong in that regard. Now, it does have its own patterns and malignancies, and we'll talk about that. But I think as a whole, Taurus is really just trying to be the grass, the cow in the field of grass. It's just trying to kind of find its way in the cycle to make sure that its purpose is fulfilled to the best of its ability, that it's not harming anyone, and that it's just enjoying the life that it has. And in order to do that, we need a certain amount of fixedness. We need a certain amount of routine. We need a certain amount of ritual, because that not only ensures that we keep our energy consistent, but it also makes sure that we don't use or tread into any other resources that aren't needed for our process. You know, in some ways, Taurus is a very conservative sign, but it is also ruled by, you know, Venus, who is a planet of abundance. So it's about enjoying the resources that you have, but also not using more than you are naturally given or that you need to function. Those are the boundaries of Taurus. So the ruling planet is Venus, and this is where we get a lot of Taurus's niceness. If Taurus was ruled by a fiercer planet like Saturn, or even a more emotional planet like the moon, although the moon's exaltation is in Taurus for good reason, we would see a very different expression of this sign. But Taurus being ruled by the goddess of love really does give us that kind of bovine energy, that round, curvy, big and bulky, but also just very lovey-dovey. Taurus, you know, when I think of just the archetype of the bull and the cow kind of in the field, they are some of the most loving creatures. They're big, they're hunky, they will tear you apart in a second, because they're just built like an ox, right? But at the same time, they use their force for good. They use their force for just continuing the cycles of life, which they have no problem kind of living through and through day to day. The symbol of Taurus is the bull. We see a circle with kind of two horns up above. Interestingly enough, this I really, really enjoy symbolism-wise, because the circle represents life, and the crescent up top represents the crown, or the ability to be sovereign in one's own life, or to receive life to the fullest. And I think both of those interpretations with the symbology of Taurus, if you look at each of the zodiac signs, you'll be able to crack into some of that symbolism. But I really enjoy that Venusian quality of being able to receive life. And also being sovereign, which is something that Taurus does very well. Taurus is not just somebody who can appreciate resources, but they're also somebody who can caretake for those resources. The highest virtue of Taurus is normalcy. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean boring, but at its worst, and the criticism from other signs would be that Taurus is one of the most boring signs. Meh. I personally have Scorpio rising with Taurus on the 7th house of relationships. I happen to be in love with the Taurus quality of normalcy. I think that it's refreshing. I think that in a world that is full of emotional chaos and unpredictability, why not be boring? Why not have a routine? Why not have a ritual? Why not have a life that is predictable and easy? Right? Not everybody feels that way. Some people would like to be sucked up in the chaos and the drama. But Taurus is very much the sign of anti-drama. It doesn't like drama. It prefers, drama is a waste of energy, and energy is precious, and energy deserves to be conserved and used for the highest good. And Taurus is not necessarily a fan of anything other than that. Now, the deepest weakness of Taurus is this idea of repression. Normalcy, ritual, and routine comes at a price. And often the price is the inability to acknowledge what rocks the boat. Yeah, and I use that analogy intentionally because, like the guys in Dull song, you know, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Like that's very much a Taurus song. Is don't break routine, don't break ritual, everything is normal, everything is okay. You know, as long as we stay fixed earth, as long as we stick to our guns and we continue doing what we've always done, everything will work out okay. That is toxic, right? And that is the real weakness of Taurus, is the inability to acknowledge things outside of their normal, of their ritual, of their routine. And that fixed earth really does breed the densest of stagnations. So we do need people in other Taurian lives to be kind of that shaker-upper and to really make sure that your lovely Taurus friend, partner, companion, family member, coworker is not getting stuck in their own rut and thereby repressing a lot of the feelings that they should be dealing with. Because, you know, when we think of fixed earth, one of the things that comes to mind is coal, right? And oil. It's literal decay that has been pushed so far underground, which we're now tapping as a natural resource. But it's fermented dead things, right? And Taurus is perfectly fine with letting those dead things ferment and having them no longer see the light of day ever. And to a certain degree, that is a accurate coping mechanism, and to another degree, that is a very unhealthy coping mechanism. So we need to kind of balance those two things. The needs of Taurus include routine, schedules, and alone time. And we've already talked about routine and schedules being very important to Taurus's sticking together of normalcy, but then also we need to understand this idea of alone time. Taurus will often develop projects or hobbies that allow them to retreat in order to process their emotions. And these are things they kind of have to do on their own. And you can always join them, and they like it when you join them. But at the end of the day, they will often prefer to do these activities alone because it is the only time that they have in order to kind of be alone in the middle of their field and process and ruminate over what has kind of happened throughout their day, throughout their week, throughout their month, throughout their life. Yeah. Two things, actually. I could only think of two things because Taurus has very few weaknesses. You know, Taurus is the sturdy sign. Taurus as the bull, like, is meant to do the heavy labor, is meant to bear the burden. You know, fixed earth is literally the most stable formation that we have in the zodiac. So the weaknesses are few, but the weaknesses are still present, and we kind of need to take this into consideration. Taurus is smothered by selfhood. And what I mean by that is Taurus, through its own efficiency, through its own normalcy, will suffocate itself. Yeah, it will become so normal that it will ignore and shut out any pain, any disruption, and it will cling to that sense of normalcy for dear life in order to keep things going at an even pace. And that is really its primary motive, its modus operandi, but it is also one of the things that tends to smother it in the long run. And it also kind of boils down to chronic choices, you know, because Taurus is craving this idea of not just living life to the fullest, and we don't mean that in an exciting way, but enjoying the indulgences of life. You know, there's a reason why Taurus rules the thyroid of metabolism. You know, a lot of Tauruses fall prey to dietary issues and indulgences and are victims of their chronic choices. But not just from a dietary perspective, also from an emotional perspective, from a relationship perspective. The reason why Tauruses are so dependable is because they often don't change out their friend groups. it's often very difficult for them to let go of relationships, because in order to literally uproot the grounds that they know and love, that requires a large amount of pain. Yeah. But you suppress enough and you hold on to enough, and Taurus is one of those signs where they can become bulls can see red, and they can go off. And probably some of the most scariest moments that I've ever experienced have been repressed Taurus moments. Yeah, they are so nice and they're so kind, and to see them flip is just, it's horrifying, because everything that they represent in your life in terms of stability and coolness, they lose. And that can be very shocking to the system. But it's all due to their chronic choices, and all due to the idea that they will not forego their normalcy, their comfort, their safety in order to make choices that serve them better in the long run. Tauruses hate ripping off the Band-Aid and doing those things that really do bring uncomfortableness into the immediate kind of sense of now, so that they feel happier or better or freer in the long term. So if we can just get Taurus to maybe pair with a Virgo, or have some heavy Uranus placements, or maybe even befriend a good Gemini, not an evil Gemini. Just kidding. They're both the same. So when we look at what Taurus really, really needs, besides that routine, that schedule, that alone time, it's somebody else to look into their life and say, hey, by the way, you've been doing this thing, you've been operating in this way for such a long time, maybe you should consider changing. And change is really the enemy of that Taurus normalcy, but it is at the end of the day what is kind of needed in their scheme. Okay, so that is a little bit of Taurus, our first Venusian-ruled sign, recording on this Friday. Thank you so much for watching this video in the sign series. I'll do them for all the signs. Likewise, I am a professional astrologer, so if you have Taurus placements that you would like to talk about, and go maybe a little bit more in depth into your chart, or learn more about astrology in general, you can always cancel those notifications that make noise when you're trying to record, but you can always contact me through my website, which is www.scorpiorisingastrology.com. Click the consultations page for consultations, the online classes page for online classes, and until next time, may the stars be ever in your favor.